Welcome, everybody, back to the Armchair Athletes. I'm Reno,
And I'm Ed.
and we're here to talk about our NBA preview, starting from the worst to the best team. And right now, last time we talked about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Gross, I know. But now we're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that is very close to Ed and I's heart, more Ed than me. But we were both, Ed's from Oklahoma, and I lived in Oklahoma for a decade. So this is going to be a fun one to talk about. Let's talk about last year, Ed.
All right, Reno. Last year, the Thunder blew out everybody's expectations. They were
Yes.
44-28, which was good for the fifth seed in the Western Conference. They talk a little bit about how they played.
So I want to do something real quick. It's the first time we've done it on this show. But I want to shout out somebody. I don't know his last name, but I worked with him and I played basketball with him quite a bit. And he's really good. It made me look really stupid. His name is Levi. And we worked together at Home Depot. And Levi told me when Westbrook and Paul George were traded, he said the Thunder were going to make the playoffs and be a good team. And I laughed because I'm dumb. He was the only person that told me the Thunder were going to be good. You know, the experts and the media and everybody, all my friends, even including me, who I like to think I'm decently knowledgeable on this topic. He was the one person, and I technically owe him, I think, a few bucks. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure. I haven't seen him in a year. I don't know what he's doing. He could be living under a bridge. Who knows? But Levi, you get the shout out, my man. Great job. I was wrong. Last year they did fantastic. They made a million trades last year because Sam Presti plays my league, but in real life, he's been playing 2K in real life. The boy's a flip artist. He's a flipper, like he's on HGTV or something. The boy does work. So last year they traded everybody for Chris Paul, and they have trying to blank Shea Gillis Alexander and all these other boys, and they did so well. They performed above expectations. Billy Donovan, shout out to Billy Donovan, proved that he was a coach, an actual NBA coach who gives their team an identity, which is the hardest thing any NBA coach can do, is give their team an identity. Chris Paul also helped the culture push along. I mean, Chris Paul just does things that Chris Paul does. He makes every team better. And then finally, Steven Adams had a great beard.
I think Billy Donovan should have won Coach of the Year.
I agree,
but
100%.
I mean, he coached his butt off. He took that team, and I mean, after the few years they had previously, he really and I think they were so close to beating Houston.
Yeah,
and honestly, I think if they would have gave LA a run. I mean, probably only won like one game, but still against LA, that's pretty solid. So let's talk about some of a lot of the changes that they.
Oh God. I have the reading level of a third grader. So additions. Sam Presti made a lot of additions, some subtractions. So they have Al Horford, George Hill, Trevor Ariza, Ty Jerome, TJ Leaf, Darius Miller. Fun fact. You want to know a fun fact, Ed?
I do.
There's 3 players in NBA history, the history of the NBA, that are named TJ. And last year, they all played for the Indiana Pacers. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that funny? That's just a wild world. So they got TJ Leaf, who was a first-round pick about 5 years ago. Darius Miller, he's a solid shooter. He can shoot. That's about it. Ty Jerome, he's a big guard that can hopefully blossom in anything. Trevor Ariza, who I think is past his prime. I think he can help a contender out in spurts. I think he could play like 15, 20 minutes a game, kind of like Marcus Sol does for the Lakers, and help out a contender. George Hill, I think George Hill. So these next 2 players are going to get traded either by the trade deadline or at the end of the season. George Hill and Al Horford. George Hill's going to be a really good. I mean, I think he's actually going to be traded by the trade deadline. teams going to want George Hill, his defensive ability, his playmaking ability, his 3-point shooting, and Al Horford's going to be really good by the end of the season. I think he was in a weird spot. Subtractions: Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari, Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, Nerlens Noel, Terrence Ferguson, Abdul Nader.
In other words,
a lot.
The entire team from last year.
the entire damn team. I don't mind the subtractions.
Yeah.
I think OKC did really well last year in this way. They had a product, and they put the product in display for the whole world, and the product turned out to be really, really good. And now they're selling that product for a lot of money, aka picks and youth. Yeah. So they did a great job, and I did not believe this was going to happen. Sam Presti, I bow down to you, my man.
Good shit. We always knew Sam Presti was a good GM.
For sure.
He made like one bad decision in his life, and that was not paying the $4 million for the luxury tax. And that was his owners.
Overall, $4 million overall.
Yeah. And that's the owners.
What?
That's the owner's fault. That's not even Sam Presti's fault.
$4 million?
I'm very excited for the future of this team. Again, like we talked about, they're in Oklahoma. They're really close to my heart. I've grown a lot of liking for this team over the years. I felt like in the early years I had to been forced to like them, and I went in the opposite direction. But I really, really enjoy where this team is going. I really I know for a lot of Thunder fans that aren't used to rebuilding, a lot of people are very upset about it. And I just want to encourage you guys to understand that there are – let me finish real quick.
All right. I'll keep my hand raised, Mr. Sully.
All right. Sounds good. The Thunder have never rebuilt in general, I think, since the Thunder has existed, other than like the first however many years. But they haven't gone through a real successful rebuild yet. And it's going to be very good in the future for a very long time, because I really trust Sam Presti, especially after all this. All right, go.
To you Thunder fans, and you know who you are, who made fun of my Lakers all those years when I was in high school for being terrible with players like Jody Meeks and Jordan Farmar. They were terrible, and we were terrible. And Jim Buss was terrible. I don't want to hear anything complaining. Your GM pulled a rabbit out of his hat, and then all the rabbit's kids after that. Your GM did work. He's sweating. And also, here's one thing. You guys, I don't want to go into a whole Thunder tangent on the fans, but you entitled pricks. Here's the thing. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Serge Ibaka, all those guys, Chris Paul, they're gone. And you got to be like the rest of the other 29 teams, like me and like everyone else who loves NBA basketball, and be sad for a couple years and talk about your young players that look good, because you guys do have some young players that look good. And I like your coach, a Billy Donovan student himself. You guys are going to look good. So that being said, just you gotta suck it up like the rest of us. I was crying for like 4 years. 4 years. I'm speak to the camera. 4 years. All right, I'm done.
All right. Piggybacking off of that, let's talk about their one of their draft picks. One of their ones that I think is really going to stick out for this team. Drafted at the 17th, they made a trade with Detroit. That was for that 25th pick, I believe. 7 foot. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, but you can see
Pokey.
7 foot power forward from Greece. He played
Pokey. Talk to him, man.
From what I read, kind of your stretch big, prototypical, very weak upper body, which will get him into a lot of trouble in the paint, which will be huge issues in the Western Conference with guys like Jokic, Anthony Davis, etc. that's really going to hurt them for now. But with all that said, he is only just, I believe, by the time of the draft, he had just turned 19. So if the draft would have happened in June, he would have been 18 when he was drafted. So he's the youngest of the draft eligible players. So his body will mature, especially with the NBA strength and conditioning. He will bulk up, I believe. And that will, I think, help pair him with his rebounding, which will be an issue to start. But he can put the ball on the floor, he can shoot, and he can play make, which I think will help, especially at his size. Very high IQ as well in the European system. Most of those guys always have very high basketball IQ.
Really do. I think it's in the water or the healthcare.
It must be. Do you have any thoughts on Pokey?
I love Pokey. I like watching him play. Obviously you can only watch the highlights for him. I think he's very fun. This is my worry. I'm not watching a man this size in a full game, because when watching young big men run a court, that's how you know they're going to be a good big man. Do they walk like, or are they actually running? If you look at Hashim the Beat, who in my opinion was, I don't know how he was drafted so high. Was he number 2, number 3? Some stupid like number 2? He ran like a man with Parkinson's was on stilts. He did not know how to run, and that's how you could tell if a big man can run. I'm worried about not being able to watch him. I think in terms of his half court game, I like his IQ, like what he pointed out. I think he's a brilliant player. I think he's being his height and being able to shoot as well as he does, he's going to have no problem. His strength worries me. His lack of explosiveness worries me. And his lateral foot speed worries me. He's not going to be able to play the power forward position in the NBA. Let me tell you, he's going to be playing big man minutes.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, let's take a look at the rotation. Kind of cut off the page here a little bit.
Yeah, cut out. So freaking Shy. So the rotation is Shy, Gilgeous. What?
Jay.
SGA. Lou Dort, Trevor Ariza, Darius Baisley, and Al Horford. So number 1, Lou Dort showed up last year.
He did. I love Lou Dort.
The boy played. He plays basketball like a linebacker, and he doesn't foul. That's crazy. You ever play basketball with a football player?
I haven't, but I've heard stories, horror stories.
I got the body build of a string bean. And I played some basketball with football players. And let me tell you, I never left the court with more bruises in my life. Lou Dort's a player. I love Lou Dort's attitude. I think that jump shot's going to develop more. I think he's going to become at least a Danny Green type of player, but a lot more physical. SGA is fantastic. He's kind of a chameleon of basketball. Shy, here's the thing with Shy. I don't know what the hell he is in terms of type of player. Is he a primary playmaker? Is he a scorer? He just does whatever his team needs to do. Every other all-star point guard is something. You know what I'm saying? Like they have some sort of archetype. Trevor Ariza is just there to get paid. Respect. Darius Baisley he's a really good power. I like Darius Baisley. He's young. I think he's like 21. He could pass it, he could shoot it, he could put the ball on the floor a little bit, he could rebound a little bit. He's not the best defender, but offensively he's well-rounded. Al Horford is the X factor for this team in terms of draft. I think that Al Horford's going to get him a lot of draft picks. I hate their bench. Justin Jackson, he's all right. Mike Muscala's all right. Hamidou Diallo, I kind of like him. He's very athletic. George Hill, he's going to get a couple picks. I'm sorry. He's going to get a couple picks himself. Frank Jackson's also going to do well too. I like Frank Jackson a lot. I think he's from New Orleans.
Is Pokey a drafting stash, or is he?
He's playing.
Okay.
He played in preseason. He got dunked on.
Well, there's that lack of strength we talked about.
Yeah, he got dunked on. He ain't blocking anyone this season. That ain't happening. Maybe next season.
I do believe he will get bigger. I mean, look at Steven Adams.
Oh, I mean, you're right. He has time to build up. You're 100% right.
So I'm interested and excited to see, which leads us into our next segment here, the vibe check. I'm very excited about the future of this team. I believe that in the next few years they're going to struggle for a couple years, but I think here within 5 years they're going to be really, really, really good. And I'm really excited for the future of this team.
I think the attitude for this team is the future, like you said. I think they are going to suck in terms of win record, but I think they're going to play hard every game. They just won't have enough talent. This is where this team separates from the rest of the teams we mentioned previously. Is this team is going to compete and they'll have some sort of identity. They just won't have enough talent to overcome the team that they had to play. Yeah. I like this Thunder team. I think this team is set for the future. I think they're decently set for the near present. And by that I mean like the next year or two. My thing with this team is when they trade Al Horford and George Hill for draft capital, that I think they're going to trade. They're going to cash in on some of their picks because they have 1 million picks. They're going to trade some of their picks, get a top pick in this upcoming draft. I see Brandon Boston Jr. going to this team right here. I think he's a perfect fit with Shai. I think he's a scoring, or Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes, he's another really good guard. I'm not guard, sorry, wing. I think one of those two players. I don't think they're going to be able to get Cade. I think whoever gets the first overall pick, and I don't think it's going to be them, unless they win the odds, is going to get Cade and keep Cade. But I think they can trade up for Brandon or Scotty for sure.
Do you think they'd realistically? Well, we could talk about that later. I was going to say, do you think realistically they'd be able to get the first pick or trade up to the first pick if they didn't get it? I don't think. Yeah,
I think the person who gets the first pick is getting Cade Cunningham, and they don't care who's their starting point guard. Because Cade Cunningham's number one, he's 6'8" at the point guard spot.
Crazy.
And unlike Ben Simmons, he shoots threes. And he doesn't play like Ben Simmons either. Ben Simmons, when he plays, granted, he's a very smooth player, but he uses his weight and gets down. Cade Cunningham, I mean, he has a handle. He has a little wiggle to him. Ben Simmons has a handle, but he doesn't have any wiggle to him. Cade Cunningham can break you down. You can snatch ankles. I don't see Ben Simmons snatching ankles.
All right, Reno. Let's go ahead and talk about let's go ahead and get our next segment. Think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to be great. I can realistically see them getting 230 wins. I don't see them going much higher than that. What do you think?
25 to 28 wins. I think that they may have a couple of upset games playing with pure heart and pure will. Their new coach, I don't remember his name, but he's a Billy Donovan student. I like him. I think he's going to do really well. I like this team. I like the young players. I think Al Horford and George Hill are going to bring him some new draft picks. I think they're going to get one of those two players I mentioned earlier, and I like the future of this team.
All right. Well, that was the Oklahoma City Thunder. Reno, go and take us out.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. We are the Armchair Athletes, and tune in for the next episode. Home of the home of the GOAT. Goodbye.
Peace.
Peace.